Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
The United States of America was a young country, but it faced a big problem early on. The nation was divided into two main parts, the North and the South. People in these two regions had very different ideas and ways of life. This division grew over many years. The most important question causing this split was slavery. In the southern states, many people used enslaved people to work on large farms called plantations. Their way of life and economy depended heavily on this system. However, in the northern states, factories and industries were growing. Many people in the North believed slavery was morally wrong and wanted it to end. This caused deep anger and disagreement between the two regions. Because of these big differences, this young country started a war with itself. The North and the South became bitter enemies, unable to agree on a future for the nation. This book will explore the causes and events of this terrible conflict, the American Civil War. We will look at how the fighting began and changed year by year to understand why it tore the nation apart. 2. The country breaks. The United States began with a big problem in 1819. There were 11 free states and 11 slave states, creating a careful balance in the government. When Missouri wanted to join the U.S., it wanted to be a slave state. This would break the balance. Northerners opposed slavery's growth, while Southerners wanted states to choose. In 1820, the Missouri Compromise helped. Missouri became a slave state, and Maine became a free state. Also, new states north of a certain line would always be free. New land brought new arguments. Texas, once part of Mexico, wanted to join the U.S. as a slave state. This again troubled the balance. President James K. Polk wanted more land, believing in westward expansion. He tried to buy California and New Mexico from Mexico, but Mexico refused. In 1846, Polk sent troops to the Texas border, starting a war with Mexico. The U.S. won, gaining vast new lands. These new territories led to more disagreements about slavery's future. In 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act let people in new territories vote on slavery. This caused many people, both for and against slavery, to move to Kansas. Much fighting and killing followed, a time called Bleeding Kansas. Dozens died. A U.S. Senator, Charles Sumner, spoke strongly against slavery in Congress. Another congressman beat Sumner with a cane, showing the rising violence. The Dred Scott court case made things worse. Dred Scott, a slave, had lived in free territories with his owner. After his owner died, Scott sued for his freedom. The case went to the Supreme Court. In 1857, the court ruled Scott, as a black man, was not a citizen and could not sue. It also said Congress could not stop slavery in new territories. This angered many Northerners and pleased many Southerners. The country was very divided. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln, a leader against slavery's spread, was elected president. He was a Republican. Many Southern states saw his election as a threat to their way of life, which relied on slavery. Soon after Lincoln won, South Carolina voted to leave the U.S. 10 more Southern states followed, forming the Confederate States of America, with Jefferson Davis as president. President Lincoln would not accept the Southern states leaving. The country was truly broken. 3. The first fights. The American Civil War began early on April 12, 1861. Southern forces fired cannons at Fort Sumter, a Union fort in South Carolina. The fort was small, with few soldiers and supplies, and Confederates had surrounded it. For over 30 hours, Southerners attacked. Union soldiers fought back, but could not win. The Union troops left, and Confederates won the first battle. President Abraham Lincoln quickly reacted. On April 15th, he asked for 75,000 volunteers to join the Union Army, to stop the rebellion. This caused 4 more Southern states to leave the Union. Jefferson Davis, the Confederate president, also asked for 100,000 men. Both sides believed the war would be short. Lieutenant General Winfield Scott, a Union general, created the Anaconda Plan to defeat the South. Scott wanted to protect Washington, D.C., and block Southern ports to stop supplies. The plan also aimed to cut the Confederacy in two by attacking along the Mississippi River. The Anaconda Plan aimed to slowly weaken the South, but leaders did not fully support it at first. In July, Union leaders decided to attack Richmond, Virginia, the Confederate capital. General Irvin McDowell led about 35,000 Union soldiers. Many Northerners were excited, thinking the Union would win easily. Some civilians even followed the army to watch. On July 21st, the armies met near a stream called Bull Run. Most of McDowell's soldiers were new and had little experience. Confederate forces, led by General P.G.T. Beauregard and General Joseph E. Johnston, fought strongly. General Thomas Jackson stood firm, earning him the nickname Stonewall Jackson. The Union Army was pushed back, and their retreat quickly turned into a confused run. Confederates won the Battle of Bull Run. This defeat shocked the North. It showed President Lincoln and the Union that the war would not be quick or easy. Many more hard battles would come. The country faced a long and difficult fight. 4. A hard year. The year 1862 was a hard year for the Union Army. President Abraham Lincoln faced many problems with his generals. General George B. McClellan, a very cautious leader, was one such general. He was proud and careful, often thinking the enemy had more soldiers. This made him slow to act. Lincoln wanted bold generals, but McClellan was often too hesitant. In the spring, McClellan started the Peninsula Campaign to capture Richmond, the Confederate capital. He moved a huge army by ship to Virginia. He planned to march to Richmond, but Confederate defenses were ready. McClellan waited a month outside Yorktown instead of attacking, giving Confederates time to prepare. The campaign lasted months with slow moves, and McClellan never captured Richmond. Lincoln was unhappy with his general's speed. Far to the west, a terrible battle happened in Tennessee, the Battle of Shiloh. General Ulysses S. Grant led Union soldiers there. On April 6th, Confederate forces launched a surprise attack. Many Union soldiers were not ready. The fighting was brutal for 2 days. Both sides suffered huge losses. General Albert Sidney Johnston, a top Confederate leader, was killed. Over 23,000 men were killed, wounded, or missing. It was the deadliest battle in American history at that time, showing how bloody the war would be. During this difficult year, a new leader came for the South. In June, Confederate General Joseph E. Johnston was badly hurt. President Jefferson Davis then gave command to General Robert E. Lee. Lee was a brilliant military leader from Virginia, known for his daring plans. In September, General Lee led his army north into Maryland, hoping for a big victory and foreign help. But Union soldiers found Lee's battle plans, helping General McClellan's army prepare. The armies met near Antietam Creek. On September 17th, the Battle of Antietam began. It was a day of terrible fighting, the single bloodiest day in American history. More than 22,000 men were killed, wounded, or missing. Lee's invasion was stopped, and he returned to Virginia. Despite stopping Lee, 1862 was still very hard for the Union. Generals struggled, and Lincoln sometimes changed commanders. The Union lost other important battles, like the Second Battle of Bull Run in August and the Battle of Fredericksburg in December. These many defeats caused low morale in the North, making it clear the war would not end quickly. 5. The war changes. The year 1863 brought big changes to the war. On January 1st, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. This important paper declared that slaves in the states fighting against the Union were now free. It did not free all slaves at once, especially not in the border states that stayed with the Union. But it changed the reason for the war. Now it was also a fight for freedom. After the proclamation, African American men could join the Union Army. Many thousands of men, eager for freedom, joined the fight. About 200,000 black soldiers bravely risked their lives. They helped the Union Army in many battles, showing great courage and desire for a new future. Their participation made the Union Army stronger and gave the war a new moral purpose. In May, a major battle happened at Chancellorsville, Virginia. The Confederate Army, led by General Robert E. Lee, won this battle. However, it came at a great cost. The South lost one of its best generals, Stonewall Jackson. He was accidentally shot by his own soldiers at night and died a few days later from his injuries. General Lee was very sad, saying he had lost his right arm. Jackson's death was a heavy blow to the Confederate Army. Just 2 months later, in July, two very important battles took place. General Lee decided to take the war north, into Pennsylvania. This led to the Battle of Gettysburg, a 3-day fight from July 1st to July 3rd. Union General George Meade and his army met Lee's forces. It was the largest and bloodiest battle of the entire war. After terrible fighting and many deaths, the Union Army won. This victory stopped Lee's invasion of the North and was a major turning point in the war. At the same time, in the West, Union General Ulysses S. Grant was fighting for control of Vicksburg, Mississippi. Vicksburg sat on a high bluff and controlled a vital part of the Mississippi River. Grant's army surrounded the city in a long siege. The Confederate soldiers inside Vicksburg ran out of food and supplies. After 47 days, on July 4th, the Confederate forces surrendered to Grant. This victory gave the Union complete control of the Mississippi River. It split the Confederacy into 2 parts, making it hard for the South to move supplies and soldiers. These events in 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation, the death of Stonewall Jackson, and the Union victories at Gettysburg and Vicksburg changed the direction of the war. The Union now had a stronger purpose and key strategic advantages. The war had truly changed. 6. The North pushes hard. The year 1864 was a turning point for the Union. General Ulysses S. Grant became the leader of all Union armies. This meant he was in charge of every soldier fighting for the North. Grant had a new, tough plan. He knew the South had fewer men and less supplies. So he decided on a war of attrition. This meant he would keep fighting, even if it meant heavy losses for his own side, because he knew the South would run out of men and supplies first. He believed the North could replace its soldiers, but the South could not. Grant began his plan with the Overland Campaign in Virginia. These were some of the most brutal battles of the war. In May, his army fought General Robert E. Lee's forces in the Battle of the Wilderness. The fighting was fierce, and thick forests made it hard to see. Many soldiers died or were wounded. After this, Grant did not retreat. He kept pushing south, fighting Lee at Spotsylvania Courthouse for 2 weeks. Then came the Battle of Cold Harbor, where Union soldiers suffered many more deaths in a short time. In just 6 weeks, the Union lost about 55,000 men. Despite these terrible losses, Grant kept moving forward, always toward Richmond, the Confederate capital. While Grant pushed in Virginia, General William T. Sherman led another Union army into the Deep South. His mission was to capture Atlanta, a very important city in Georgia. After many fights, Confederate General John Hood and his army left Atlanta. Sherman and his troops entered the city in September. They stayed for a few months. In November, Sherman ordered that all military buildings and resources in Atlanta be burned. This caused a huge fire that destroyed much of the city. After Atlanta, Sherman began his famous March to the Sea. He took 62,000 soldiers and marched across Georgia to the coast, aiming for Savannah. Sherman wanted to show the South that the Union could go anywhere and destroy anything. His men destroyed farms, railroads, and anything that helped the Confederate Army. They made life very hard for Southern civilians. This was a new kind of total war. By Christmas, Sherman's army reached Savannah and captured the city, presenting it to President Lincoln as a gift. In the middle of all this fighting, President Lincoln faced re-election in November 1864. Many people in the North were tired of the war and the heavy losses. Lincoln ran against his old general, George McClellan. But with victories like Atlanta and Sherman's March, Northerners saw hope. Lincoln won the election with many votes, showing that the Union would continue the war until it was won. 7. The end of the war. The war was nearing its end in early 1865. Union forces continued their strong push into the South. In North Carolina, Union soldiers attacked Fort Fisher. This important port fell to the North. 1 month later, General Sherman marched his army into South Carolina. His soldiers brought more destruction, much like his march to the sea. Sherman's army went through Columbia, the state's capital, causing much damage. The city was almost completely burned down. After this, Sherman moved his troops towards Wilmington, North Carolina, and captured it. This meant the Union now controlled key areas in the Carolinas. Meanwhile, General Grant's Union Army kept up its pressure on the Confederate capital, Richmond, Virginia. They also attacked Petersburg, a city near Richmond. The fighting was very hard. Finally, after a long siege, General Lee had to leave Petersburg and Richmond. On April 3, 1865, Union soldiers entered the Confederate capital. It was a huge victory for the North. General Lee's army was now retreating. They moved west, trying to meet other Confederate forces. But Union cavalry and infantry chased them closely. Lee's army was getting surrounded by Union forces. Supplies were low, and many soldiers were tired and hungry. They knew the fight was almost over. Fighting happened again at Appomattox Courthouse. General Gordon tried a final attack, but it did not work. Lee knew his army could not fight anymore. He said he had to meet General Grant. On April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee and General Ulysses S. Grant met. They met at Wilmer McLean's house in Appomattox Courthouse. Grant offered good terms. He allowed Confederate soldiers to keep their horses and go home. He also offered food for Lee's hungry soldiers. Lee accepted these terms. General Grant told his men not to cheer. He said, "The war is over. The rebels are our countrymen again." Lee's surrender was a big moment. It meant the main Confederate army had given up, but not all fighting stopped at once. Other Confederate armies also gave up in the following weeks. General Johnston surrendered on April 26th. General Richard Taylor surrendered on May 4. The last major army, led by General Simon Bolivar Buckner, surrendered on May 26th. The long, hard war was finally over across the whole country. 8. A new country. The Civil War finally ended, but the country faced a very high cost. Many lives were lost. Around 290,000 Southern soldiers died, and about 365,000 Northern soldiers lost their lives. Also, about 50,000 regular people, called civilians, died. The war even led to the deaths of 880,000 enslaved people. In total, over 600,000 soldiers died. This was the most deadly war in American history up to that time. The war also cost a lot of money, around $6.7 billion. It was the first modern war with new weapons and a big scale of fighting. One of the most important outcomes of the war was the end of slavery. For many years, slavery had divided the North and the South. Now, enslaved people were free. This changed the lives of millions of African Americans. It also changed the country forever. The war reunited the United States. Before the war, people often said, "The United States are." This meant they saw the states as separate parts. After the war, people started saying, "The United States is." This showed that the country was now truly one nation. Healing and rebuilding would take a long time. But in the end, there was unity and the country became stronger. The Civil War left a big mark on American history. Some people see it as a war that could have been avoided. They believe that talking and new laws could have solved the problems. Others see it as a fight for what was right, a battle for freedom against slavery. The true meaning of the war is still discussed today. It taught the country hard lessons, but also made it truly united. What do you think was the most important change that came from the Civil War?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.